Hi, I'm Gene. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi,
Gene. It's a bit of a surprise today, but I'll do my best. I'll share my story, and I recall giving someone some advice early on in my sobriety that kind of reflects on what the steps can do for sobriety. But we'll get to that. My sobriety date is March 18th, 1996. My home group is meets in Ringo's, New Jersey, on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. And I do have I'm working on, I just started with a new sponsor, my third sponsor. My first two sponsors died. I'm rough on sponsors. And, let me tell you where it started. I'm one of 6 kids. I was born in Europe, came to this country when I was 3 years old, and we came with absolutely nothing, not totally penniless, and I'm the oldest son of 6 kids, and we moved to Jersey City. Before it became gentrified, it was right across the street from the rail yards where my old man worked 2 consecutive shifts, hard labor, and he wasn't an alcoholic. He saved every penny. He wouldn't spend money on alcohol, but he would drink on occasions, and it usually were after church, because the church that we attended had a community center, and they served liquor. And once the old guys got talking about the old the war efforts, and apparently my old man was some kind of hero, because everybody would start buying him shots, and he would drink them all. And but he never drank at home, only at church. My mother raised 6 kids. If there was ever a saint on this earth, it was my mother. She was the kindest, most loving person you could ever imagine. And so for me, you hear trying to fit in as part of people's story, and that was my story from the very beginning. My mother would tell me I was 3 or 4 years old, and she would tell me to go out and play with the other kids that were in the streets. I couldn't speak English, and man, I'd get pushed around a lot, man, it was bad. And all I wanted to do is to fit in. And I had to repeat kindergarten, which was totally humiliating at that time. I remember I hated my kindergarten teacher. She didn't like immigrants either. When the little girls or the boys in the class would raise their hand and ask to go to the bathroom, she'd let them go. If I had raised my hand and asked to go to the bathroom, she said, sit down. And when the pain got too bad, I just got up. She would tell me, sit down in your seat. I just walked out. I just went to the bathroom. And then I got marked as does not follow instructions, and stuff like that. So, in the 3rd grade, I got my first really good report card. My old man was looking at it, and he said, oh, that's good. And then I was the oldest son, So he explained to me, I have one older sister. He explained to me that you're the oldest son. Your oldest sister, she's just going to get married and she don't count. you know. But you are going to college. And he told me that in the third grade. And I remember feeling like I was the chosen one. He picked me to go to college. And I knew it was going to be expensive. I knew it was going to be hard. And from that day, I became an A student. Man, I studied my ass off. Got my first job. There was a lady across the street that needed a dog walker. I'd walk the dog before school and after school. And I'd get my $250 a week. I opened a bank account and I took that money every week. I'd put in the saving for college. After that, I got a job working at a grocery store, stocking shelves and stuff like that. I worked through high school, through college. My old man died the summer before I started college. And he never saw me set my foot into college. But I managed to get a full scholarship. I took the tests and I did really well on the tests and they gave me a full scholarship. Now I had a lot of money stashed away. Bought a motorcycle, bought a nice two-seater sports car. I was living big. And then after he passed away, I was ready to go off to college upstate, one of my first choices. But I got a scholarship from college in Jersey City. So I was still stuck in Jersey City. I couldn't get out of that place. I didn't drink throughout high school. My primary purpose was to get into college. I didn't drink in high school. I didn't drink in college. My grades were great. Everything was moving along fine. I had a good job. And then after I graduated, I was working in a lab. In a lab, you wear what I'm wearing now, and you put a lab coat on so nobody knows the difference. So my boss walks up to me, and he says, "Gee, do you own a jacket and a tie?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Go home, put it on, and meet us at this restaurant." And he told me how to get to this restaurant in his neighborhood. And he lived in he was a big shot, and living in a high rent district. And so I drove out there, and it was a pretty upscale restaurant. He wanted to talk to me about a promotion. And the waiter comes over and asks if you want a drink. I said, "I'll have a beer." He said, "Oh, you can't have a beer in a place like this." I said, I'll drink it out of a glass. It's okay." He says, No. You got to drink a martini." So that was the first martini I had, and I had about 3 of them. And I remember I had this nice new sports car. Man, I love this thing. 2-seater convertible. And I drove home drunk, and I was driving with one eye, and that was the first time I drove drunk. I showed up to work the next. I got home okay. Showed up for work the next day. He said, "Gene, you got the job." So they gave me a nice promotion, so I could go meet with customers and get involved in technical situations with customers, whatever it was. Nice raise. I was doing good. But I quickly learned that every time I went out they all wanted to go out to have a liquid lunch. Everybody, I said, "What the fuck is going on?" Well, everybody's drinking. My boss likes to drink. My customers like to drink. Everywhere I turn, people like to drink. Kids in college, they all want to go to the bar after class. It's, what the hell's going on? I was an avid anti-drinker. When I was in high school, the drinkers were the ones that barely pass their grades, always getting into trouble. I said, no, this is not for me. I dabbled with a little pot here and there, but that was about it. So my career started going, and I was doing really well. By the time I reached 30, I got this, my last promotion was an executive position in the front office. At 30, I had my secretary outside my office, and it was a big, and I was making a lot of money. And I couldn't understand why these people are willing to pay me this kind of money. I just couldn't imagine why I was worth that much. They gave me a membership to a country club. I said, what the I was living pretty big. Bought my, I went to buy my first condo, townhouse, condo, whatever, and they were telling me all the things I have to get a mortgage, I have to go get a lawyer, I said, I don't have time for this. I just wrote out a check and put it cash because I could. I was really spoiled. Now this is moving from Jersey City, downtown Jersey City, across from the rail yards to living big. And I had my yacht, I had my sailboat, I got my pilot's license, I could do anything I want. Country club. Well, when that job started coming to an end, I decided to start my own company. And that's when I started drinking routinely. I started drinking at about age 30, hanging out with the big guys. You know, they all drank every day. They would go into the executive lunchroom, whatever they called it, and the first thing was 2 or 3 martinis every day. And I became a daily drinker. And they all said that when they get home, they always have a couple, so I started doing, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to get in the hang of this, I gotta get used to this. I got used to it, all right. Got married, got 3 kids. I drove with them drunk. There was this one of them, my kid was about 8 years old, and he wanted to join a basketball team, a local basketball team at a school. And now I'm working 5 days a week, long hours, and now I have to get up early on Saturday to take his basketball practices and games. But when I got there, I noticed right across the street from where he played basketball was a bar. So one day they were having a game, and I decided to discreetly slip out and go across the street to the bar, All right, well, I was checking the clock, and I said, well, it's time to get back because the game's going to be over soon. And I got back there, and there was about 14 seconds left on the clock. And my son's team was down by 1 point. And so they tossed it into my son, and he's walking down the court like, he's not running, he's like taking his sweet-ass time. We get 14 seconds, everybody's screaming, hustle, whatever. And he stops at half court. Now the clock is down to about 4 seconds, and the crowd starts chanting 4, 3. And at half court, he throws the ball up, and it goes in, and he wins the game. But now the crowd went crazy. His team is jumping up and down. All he did was he walked over to his bench, grabbed his bag, he said, let's get out of here, because his old man's coming back drunk again. He was totally embarrassed. The time when he should have been, having the time of his life, an experience of a lifetime. All he thought about was drunk again, And I drove him. He just sat and didn't talk for a couple of days. The damage we do. Even to this day, if we watching a basketball game on TV and somebody makes this fantastic shot, and I would make a comment like, "That's no better than the shot you made." He would just say, "Yeah, right." Just brush it off. Like, he still remembers to this day. So the damage we did. Let me tell you one other story, especially for you beginners, and something to do with the 12 steps. I came out of rehab, and during the rehab, somebody brought an AA meeting to the rehab, and this guy talked. He said he had about 27 years sobriety, and he spoke at this meeting. And afterwards, I asked him to be my sponsor. He was my first sponsor. So when I checked out, he was parked right outside the front entrance. I walked out. His car was parked. He rolls down the window and he says, "Get in." And he took me to my first AA meeting. And he told me I had to do 90 meetings in 90 days. So he gave me a meeting list. And so the second day, I was on my own. So I looked up in the book, and there was this one meeting close by, so I walked over. And before the meeting started, there was a large crowd outside of the courtyard, waiting to get in. And this guy comes walking over to me, and he was in really rough shape. His clothes were dirty, and his t-shirt was torn, and his hair was out to here. He wasn't shaved or clean. He was a mess. And he walks up to me, and he points to the crowd, and he says, "The old man over there told me to talk to me." I says, "What old man? I don't know anybody. This is my second day. I don't know what the fuck." So he starts talking. I says, "Well, how you doing?" He says, "Oh, not good, not good." He says, "I lost my job. My wife filed for divorce." And the thing that he was crying about more than anything was, he says, "And it's my daughter's first birthday, and they won't let me see her." And he was crying about that. I mean, he just, one look at him, and you probably would have said, "Oh, it's a good thing they don't let you see her in this shape here." Right? Well, anyway, I didn't say that, but we were walking into the meeting, and I didn't know what to say. I had no idea what was going on. But all I remember telling him was, just do what they tell you. That's all I told. Just do what they tell you. I don't know who they were that's going to be doing the telling, and I didn't know what they were going to tell them. But those words came out of my mouth. Just do what they tell you. And we sat through the meeting, and I didn't see this guy. I just lost. I kept doing my thing and going to meetings. But years go by, and I'm at a meeting in another part of the state, and there's a crowd outside, like usual, and I hear somebody yelling my name out from a crowd. And this guy comes running towards me with his arms open like he's gonna give me a hug. I put my arms out and said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, who the hell are you?" This guy was dressed in a jacket, a sport jacket, white collared shirt, dress pants and this and that, shiny shoes, perfectly groomed. And he says, "Gee, I'm Jim. Don't you remember me?" And then he starts telling me the story of that first meeting. And I'm standing there in total disbelief. He was not recognizable, not even close. And, well, and I said, "Well, how are you doing?" He says, "Yeah, I got a good job. I'm back into work again and this and that." And then he said, I just dropped off my daughter. I had her for the whole weekend. It was her 5th birthday. 4 years to the day, I run into this guy again. And this was at a time, I had 4 years at the time myself, and I was going through some hard times. I didn't get any my big fancy job back. I was hurting for money, and things weren't going great for me, and I was getting a little impatient, and I was starting to think about drinking. And after that discussion with this guy, he gave me hope again. We were walking into the meeting, and before he walked in the door, he turned around and he said, "Gene, you saved my life." That's what he said. Nobody ever said that to me before. Never. I remember people saying, "You almost got me killed." But nobody's ever said you saved my life before. It really shook me. He came back 4 years later. He saved my life. That's how this program works. There's magic in this program. I am totally convinced. I have other stories too that I'm reluctant to share them because they seem to be so unbelievable. But they happened. They really happened. I have a scientific, one more story. I have a scientific background, so everything has a cause and effect. Everything. That's the way we're programmed. So one day, I was driving down Route 12 by my house on a nice sunny day, and I get the most amazing feeling. It was almost like a drug feeling. And it just went all through my body. My body got warm, and it really felt good, whatever it was. And then I saw 2 large hands. I'm hallucinating. 2 large hands in front of my car doing this, like nudging the front of my car. And I says, "I'm driving straight, man. What's going on here?" And then I heard a voice. The voice said, "Don't worry, I got this." Now, I immediately called up my sponsor and told him all about it. He says, "Do you remember what you ate?" I'm trying. Yeah. And I just had no answers for this. So I had, I'm having a science background. I had to look it up. I started to look it up. And what I came down to figure out was that it was what they call the DMT experience. It's a dimethyltryptamine that's naturally occurring in your body, but sometimes it builds up to a point where you start feeling the way I described. And so I mentioned it to someone at a meeting, and this lady says she had one too, this DMT, and she was very familiar with the terminology and all that. And she told me hers, and it was very similar to mine. And but the next day, I was going to my home group, and we have a meeting in the basement, and there's a stairway going up to the church area, and every week the pastor has a message that he writes on a chalkboard along the steps up to the chapel. And I walk in and I looked up at that chalkboard, and the words on that chalkboard were, "Don't worry, I got this." I told that to the lady that had one before. She says, "Yeah, that's just in case you didn't get the message the first time." Yeah, there's some real crazy things going on. I'm telling you, it's so I had my spiritual experience. I'm dying for it to come back. It hasn't come back yet. So, so, uh, well, I had to go through a lot of losses. When I got out of, I had my own business when I was in the, when I checked into the rehab, and after 3 days, they allow you to make phone calls. So I called the office, and there was a message from one of my very good customers, and he said, "Gee, what the hell is going on?" I said, "What are you talking about?" I didn't know. And he says, "Get your ass in here as soon as possible." And so I checked out against medical advice, and I went to see him. And he's telling me this stuff that's going on that I was not aware of. Apparently, my now ex started seeing my attorney while I was in the rehab, where he was coming over and spending days at a time at my place. I found that through one of my boys. He spilled the beans. And what he did, he had access to all of my documents, my customers list, the price list, and he found my corporate seal, which is as good as my signature. He sold my company while I was in a rehab. He sold my company to my competitor. And this is when my company was, I just landed this awesome contract that was gonna put me on the map, put my company on the map, and I was gonna make tons of money. And it poof, gone. And according to a lawyer, he says that's a legal transaction because it has your signature on it because it was sealed. Well, my first year of so-called sobriety, I wasn't sober. I was homicidal, and I was suicidal. My best plan, my best thinking during that first year was, I'm going to kill this guy. I'm going to shoot him. And when I knew I wasn't going to get away with it, so when the cops came to get me, I just point the gun at the cops and let them take care of the rest. That was my best thinking. When my sponsor caught wind that I was looking to buy a gun, he was a old school kind of gruffy guy, you know. I've heard his story, and he hung out with a lot of like shady characters back in the day. He says, "I think I could help you. I know some people down in Trenton." He said, "Get in the car." So I jump in the car, and he's driving to Trenton, and I'm convinced I'm going to get a gun. I'm absolutely convinced that I'm going to get a gun that day. And he took me to the Alliant Club. It's an AA club in Trenton. And three old timers sat me down and talked with me for about 3 hours. Three old, they had over 150 years among them. And they told me a better plan. It was a better plan than mine. Mine, I wouldn't be sitting here today. For months, I just stewed. I just wanted to get my hands on that lawyer. Just squeeze the life out of him. But I decided to take the advice that I gave to that one guy. Just do what they tell you. Just do what they tell you. And I started listening. And I read the book, and I read every line, and I took it for gospel. Everything. When they say humbly asking, what do they mean by humbly? I got on my knees. That's humbly asking him. You know, I just tried to do the steps and follow this program the way it's written as best as I can. And I haven't had a drink in 25 years. I came close a couple of years ago. My son was getting married. He met this Japanese lady in New York. He lives in New York. And her parents wanted a traditional Japanese wedding in Tokyo. So we packed up and we all went to Tokyo. And it turns out that the bride's mother is this big celebrity in Japan. And she arranged the wedding to be held at the Emperor's Palace in a 1,000-year-old Buddhist temple at the Emperor's Palace. And that ceremony was like over the top, you know, like 500 attendees, you know, doing the thing. But it was highly orchestrated. And there was a point where the father of the groom had to stand at the altar and do the bowing and the this and that, whatever, and drink 3 sips of sake. And I mean, they were real sticklers for tradition, you know. And I'm wondering, whoa, boy, what am I gonna do, you know? This is like a big event. But just before that point in the ceremony where someone stopped this ceremony and there was an announcement made for those who wish not to drink alcohol can just make the gesture. My son arranged that thing, and I just made the gesture. Sake did not touch my lips, and everything went along quite smoothly. What a ride! Park bench. Yeah, I'm done.
Please limit your sharing to 3 minutes. Please keep your shares related to this step. Or if you feel like drinking, or if you've had a drink today, please see me or speak to someone after the meeting. We ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We are on a church and on church. Now I'd like to open the meeting.